Hello, Yasir. Thank you for joining us today. I know you're very busy.
My pleasure, Gitika. I'm really happy to be on your podcast.
Thank you so much. I am going to start off our conversation today with a question that's been occupying my mind for several days now. We live in a very close-knit world, um, linked to events that are happening on the other side of the globe. Yet, in some ways, we are so disconnected from each other. All our information, or most of our information, seems to be coming from all sorts of social media platforms. So, what happens is it creates algorithms and it feeds us content that's consistent with what we were researching or we wanted to know more about. And we start feeling that that is the perspective of everybody around me, or that is the reality. So, my question to you is, what are the key things that people need to keep in mind these days when it comes to open discussion about provincial, national, or international issues? How can we reconnect people? What are your thoughts, Yasir?
Well, you're asking a very, very important question. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges of our times that we're living in is that we have access to tremendous amount of information, more than ever before, but that information may not be accurate. That information may be biased to suit to your needs, what you want to hear. And what it's essentially doing is putting us in silos where we are very comfortable with consuming information that is maybe biased or one-sided. And what is it's resulting in is less and less on one-on-one conversation, people talking to people, people trying to understand each other's perspectives. And so that is a big concern that consumes a lot of my thinking, is how do we find ways for people to engage with each other again. You and I know that all of us are different. We bring different perspectives and different backgrounds, but we have far more in common than not. And we can only find those common grounds and common experiences when we share them with each other. And so that's, I think that's something that we need to work on in society. Obviously, the pandemic has not helped, because during the pandemic, we all were isolated, and we had to do that to protect each other and protect ourselves. But as we are coming out of that pandemic, we need to find ways to engage with each other. And I think politicians like myself have a very important role to play in that regards, because if we also then use social media and misinformation as a tactic to make a political point, I think we're doing a big disservice to in a democratic society like ours, to have a civil discourse and conversation among people.
I'm going to ask you to take us back in time. I know that you came to Canada as a teenager, as a young boy.
I was
Uh,
15, yes.
Share your family's story as new immigrants.
Yeah, my story is very much the story of Ontario. It's a story that many people live through. My parents made the big decision of immigrating, of coming to a new country, leaving their home and their families behind, all in pursuit to build a better life for themselves and a better life for their children. Both my parents were lawyers, but when they came here, they were not able to practice law because their credentials were not recognized. They did not have Canadian experience. So
Mhm.
they what many people do. They bought a small business. They bought a motel in Niagara Falls, Ontario, and all of us pitched in. My older brother, my younger sister, and I, and growing up, my experience was cleaning rooms and making beds and washing bathrooms in the motel while going to school. Um, but then, in addition to that, a recession hit and we lost everything. Also, all my parents' savings just disappeared overnight, and we had to rebuild our lives. We had to restart our lives, and we worked extremely hard to do that. Now, 35 years later, we lived very successful lives. But there were many, many challenges that went into it. In fact, Gitika, the reason I got into politics was exactly that, was to make sure that perspective of people like myself is at the table where decisions are made, and to ensure that those challenges that people face when they build their new lives, we can make it easier for them. And there's still a lot of work that needs to happen in that regards.
I was going to ask you, how did that all shape you as a person, but you answered that. You served as the first visible minority Attorney General of Ontario, Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services, Minister of Labour, and Liberal Party President. You're now serving as a federal Member of Parliament. What are the main lessons you've learned along the way through all these roles?
Many lessons, but I think the number one lesson for me is that politics is about people. It is you derive your so-called power by helping people, by making sure that issues that people are facing, and no issue is big or no issue is small. When it impacts you, it's the only thing that matters. And our job as public servants, our job as politicians, is to ensure that we find ways to engage with people face to face, in person, to the extent possible, and learn from them, and then try to address those issues, whether they are big and small. So for me, that has not changed in about 15 years that I've been part of as an elected representative, is finding opportunities to work with people and try to help them. Any politician that loses sight of that, I think loses sight of the purpose of being in politics.
Who are your political heroes, and who inspired you the most? And how did you get involved in politics?
Yeah, so I think the inspiration really comes from my parents, both my parents. They were both involved in pro-democracy movement in Pakistan when we lived there. And, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from my parents, that status quo is never good enough. Both my parents, as I mentioned earlier, were lawyers. They lived really good, comfortable, professional lives in Pakistan. And even though they were comfortable, um, lack of democracy, lack of fair and open elections was an issue for them. And so they decided to engage in challenging the status quo, which was dangerous in a country like that when you've got a military regime. In fact, my father spent 9 months as a political prisoner, and the entire family sacrificed as a result of it. My mother fought for his rights as a political prisoner. Um, and so those two people have inspired me. They're the one who exposed me to politics. They are two people who taught me that you always find ways to challenge the status quo, that I continue to do. In terms of a political hero, the leader that I look up to, again, not for as a person, but for what he was able to accomplish, is Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Because Pierre Elliott Trudeau gave us the gift of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's a document that allows all of us to live equal lives here in Canada. It's a document that really focuses on protecting minority rights. It's an incredible constitutional document, I think, that ensures that all of us in Canada, regardless of our background, regardless of our gender, regardless of our religion, are able to live our full lives. Of course, we are not perfect in Canada, but I just cannot imagine how Canada would have shaped as a country without the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that, by the way, just only came about in 1982. So when my family and I came in 1988, the document was only 6 years old. So I don't know a life without the Charter of Rights and Freedom. And I have seen the growth, the evolution of our country because of that incredible document that Pierre Elliott Trudeau championed. And I'm grateful to him for having the vision of shaping the country the way he was able to through the charter.
Yasir, I'm so glad you brought up all those points, because my follow-up question was going to be, For people, I am from India and you're from Pakistan. For people who are new to Canada, how would you describe politics in Canada for them? How is it different from other parts of the world?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I tell people that politics is personal. Um, Politics is about our individual self. Of course, we have a collective responsibility as to how we shape the society, but this is an incredible power that we have been given in our democracy. There's one thing that is certain in Canada, that there's going to be an election at least every 4 years, and and that is the time where every single one of us is in charge. We get to decide the path forward if we choose to participate.
Yes,
And so I always try to
that's key.
remind people that's the key. And I
Mhm.
always try to remind people, especially young people, when you do not vote, your action was just not you did not vote, but you actually gave your vote to me. Because whether 10 people vote or 100,000 people vote, a decision is going to be made. And if only fewer people engaged in a democracy, then those few people will decide in their own self interest, because politics is personal, as to what's the best direction. And so, what I tell newcomers is to own their democracy, to engage in our democracy, to at least vote as religiously as possible, because then we have a say as to the direction this country is going. And if we all engage and participated, I think there will be better decisions will be made, because we will elect people who are reflective to our sense of being.
So, as new immigrants, if people want to get their young kids involved in politics, that really excites me. Actually, we're doing some things very similar in our writing as well. So, doing speaker series, so community members come and talk and see the person in person, and don't feel um, kind of, oh, my question is stupid, because no question is stupid. Go and ask, because this person is right here. You're not reading from newspapers or watching this person on media. This person's right here. Go and ask your question. So that's so interesting for me to watch how that event unfolds sometimes. But for young kids, how do they get involved with politics? What is the first step they should be taking?
So there are so many opportunities to get involved in politics. You can just walk up to your local member of parliament, or your local member of provincial parliament, or your local city councillor, and you can say, I want to learn from you. I want to volunteer for you. There's always an election happening right now in Scarborough Southwest. There is a municipal election happening. There are multiple candidates running, and any young person can walk into it. To any of those candidates, say, I want to help you. I want to learn about your platform and what you stand for, and I want to be part of that. Um, I encourage everyone to join a political party. That is a very important feature and part of our democracy. Political parties are important to have a robust democracy, because it allows for us to have choices come
Our own
election time,
voice, yeah.
our voice. So, I joined the Liberal Party um, shortly after coming to Canada. I've lived in Canada for 35 years, and I've been part of the Ontario Liberal Party for pretty much as long. And it has become my family. And here I am running for the leadership of my own political party. So there are many, many opportunities for young people to get involved. I can assure you, when you do engage, you do have your voice. People are interested in listening to your perspective, and you will make meaningful contributions by virtue of the fact that you decided to knock on doors, or help a candidate, or work with an elected official.
Yasir, you are a young father, you are an MP, you are a leadership candidate. How do you juggle all these roles? It cannot be easy.
You build good support structures around you, and I'm lucky to have a life partner in my life who's very supportive. My children are getting a little older now, 11 and 7, so they understand. I have made sure that they are part of this, that I don't keep my political life and the service aspect of it away from them. I engage them, and they'll learn something new every day. In fact, they give me some good advice now. Uh, so I think that's important. And then um, people who volunteer around you, people who work with you. As I'm running for leadership, I have a remarkable team of a lot of young people who are so dedicated and so hardworking that they allow for me to be able to do all this stuff. So, and yeah, just a little bit of time management and a little few more less hours of sleep, and you can accomplish all that.
My wrap up questions are going to be easy now. What's your favorite food?
Oh my God, my favorite food. So of course I'm from Pakistani background, so biryani and pulao are the kind of things that I love most. My mother makes the most amazing aloo parathe,
Oh,
which is still my favorite. I love cooking for my kids, and they love things like pasta and whatnot. So I do that. But you know what? I'll tell you, the dish that my kids love the most, and they think it's some sort of a delicacy, is dal chawal.
oh,
And I always tell them now, it's like, dal chawal is like the most simplest food I can make, but they think when I make dal chawal, it's like a feast that day. And when I do tarka and stuff, they always say, oh yeah, daddy is channeling his inner amma. They call my mother the dadi amma. And
yeah.
so anyways, yeah,
That is so interesting. Simple food, dal chawal. Hmm.
dal chawal, can never go wrong with dal chawal.
You can never go wrong with that. Yep. Your favorite book.
Oh, my favorite books. There plenty. I'll tell you the genre of books I love. I love reading biographies.
Mhm.
Of course, I love reading about real people talking about real life,
Mhm.
whether they are full of triumphs or failures. I always learn a lot. I've got about two or three sitting on my night table that I'm sort of slowly going through. One is on Barack Obama. The other is on former Premier Robarts. That a book was written on, and I'm reading a book that came about a year and a half, 2 years ago, was by Bill Gates, a book that he wrote about the future of economy and future of our society.
Those are great books to wrap up your day. So, your favorite pastime.
My
Something, an
favorite.
activity to relax your mind.
So I'm just a normal human being. So for me, end of day means catching a small show on Netflix and eating ice cream at the same time, and that's something I like to do. Even if I can do it for half an hour or so, it just unwinds your mind and just slow it down and get you ready to go to bed. Ice cream
Yasir,
is ice cream is a must in my life. So yeah.
oh, interesting. Yasir, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate considering how busy you are. And we wish you all the best in all your future endeavors.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. I very much enjoyed our conversation.